Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Newark and Sherwood series, a district of 84 civil parishes right in the centre of Nottinghamshire. Come with me as we delve into one of them. Welcome back to Newark and Sherwood, everybody. Now, this morning I'm beginning this one on the banks of the River Trent yet again. We have seen this river far too many times, haven't we? Loads of times. Here we are. There's a nice bridge over the Trent here. I'll be talking a bit about that bridge because it's an important crossing point between Newark and Sherwood and the district that lies to the south, and you'll see what that is in a few moments. It's a lovely part of the Trent, this, because as well as the Trent, you've also got a nice pub which overlooks it right there, and a few other bits and bobs. I quite like this place and I haven't even walked around it yet. Welcome to Gunthorpe. This Newark and Sherwood video is sponsored by Past Days, a family history blog by June Terrington. You'll find a link in the description. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Gunthorpe is another riverside village in the Newark and Sherwood district of Nottinghamshire. It lies on the northern bank of the Trent, and it's an important place where the river can be crossed. Gunthorpe's history goes back a long way. It's said that Queen Boudica or Boudecea defeated the Roman 9th Legion here in the 1st century AD, near to what is now the site of the village. The settlement began its life with the Danes, sailing up the Trent in the 9th century. Gunthorpe was recorded in the Domesday Book as Gulnetorp, and a ferry is recorded across the river. These days there's no ferry, but there is a bridge over the Trent, quite an interesting one which is not in its original position. There's more on that as we make our way around the village. Gunthorpe sits beside the A6097, a major road which bypasses some of the villages in this part of Nottinghamshire, crossing that bridge as it does. Before that, all traffic travelled on Main Street. Gunthorpe is also where you'll find one of the largest locks on the River Trent, which at one time could hold as many as 4 flat-bottomed barges when commercial traffic used the river. One major thing they transported was gravel, and we'll see what happened to Gunthorpe's old gravel pits as we make our way around the route. Look out as well for a major caravan dealer here too. This is Gunthorpe, folks, a beautiful Trent-side location. Let's get walking. We start on the banks of the Trent, an area known as Trent Side. In front of us we have the Unicorn Hotel, originally a 17th century coaching inn. There have been many ghostly tales surrounding this pub, but don't let that put you off visiting it. Its vista over the Trent is ideal for a warm summer's day. It's not the only pub here either. Right next door, there's another, although more accurately this is actually a restaurant called Tom Brown's Brasserie. Over the road is a small recess where there's a bus stop. Gunthorpe is served by 2 buses, the 856 and the Rushcliffe Villager, which connects Gunthorpe to Bingham and Nottingham. There's a parish notice board here too, so let's get that out of the way nice and early. Gunthorpe is off the list, folks, 24 to go. And now we start walking up Main Street. It's not long before we find another pub, although you're not going to find anyone pulling a pint in this one. I can guarantee you in the summer, when the sun's out and everyone's enjoying the hot weather, these pubs along the Trent do a roaring trade. I imagine it's one of the hot spots of the area. And you know, it's kind of a shame that this pub here isn't active at the moment. This restaurant, Italian restaurant, it says Italian restaurant there, but obviously it was a pub in a former life. It'd be great to own a little pub like this, wouldn't it? You know, and run a little business alongside the Trent. It'd be fantastic. It's a sort of dream for most people, but you know, we haven't got that kind of money, and a lot of people haven't. So you know, it's kind of a wishful thinking, I think. Anyway, we're now on Main Street and we're going to be heading along this all the way to the top before coming back down the A6097. These signs are a dead giveaway as to how popular Gunthorpe's Trentside location is. Parking is not allowed at this end of Main Street during the summer. Our walk is now primarily an amble along Main Street. This was, until the A6097 was built, the main village thoroughfare, and it's mostly residential. The only reason to leave that road is for the school and the playing field, which are both located along this street, David's Lane. So let's go and check them out. Here's the school, Gunthorpe C of E Primary. As far as I can tell, this is the only school the village has ever had. I found no record of any other. And right next to the school is the playing field. This is an average sized field, complete with all the usual amenities, like this playground for example. There's also a football pitch, and Gunthorpe has a football team, FC Gunthorpe, who thanks to the bridge we'll come to later, are nicknamed the Bridgemen. Something that's just intrigued me a bit about this playing field is that there's some footings here for a building which no longer stands right next to the school. That's the school there, playing field here, and in between you've got this here, which is something, or used to be something, that stood once upon a time. I wonder what that was. I'm sure you Gunthorpe locals can fill me in on that one. One building that definitely is still standing though is that one right there, and that's what I'm going to talk about next. That building is Gunthorpe Village Hall, which is capable of holding 120 people at full capacity. It's used for parish council meetings, as well as many other one-off events, public meetings, private parties and shows. It's also got a small committee room. The village Christmas tree is sited next to it, as is this flagpole, proudly waving the Union flag. And now it's back to Main Street. We're in the oldest part of the village here, and you can tell by the architecture around you. Mostly, these houses are 18th or 19th century. This building looks like a former chapel, however, much like the school, I could find nothing that would have maybe confirmed my suspicion. Never mind. After that, Main Street starts to work its way towards the A6097, and between here and there, there's a small number of residential cul-de-sacs on either side of the road. Much like Quaythorpe, which we covered last week, Gunthorpe hasn't been a prime location for many new builds. It's remained pretty quiet for decades. Lots of little side streets off Main Street. They all seem to be like little residential cul-de-sacs or lanes that lead to nowhere, so they're not really helpful for the route, you know, to make a circle. So, you know, can't go down them all, unfortunately. We are heading for our next major landmark. We're almost at the top of Main Street now, and that landmark is the church, which is currently hiding behind this tree that you can see in shot right now. Let's go check it out. Gunthorpe's Anglican church is dedicated to St John the Baptist. It stands at the northeastern corner of the village just off Main Street. It was originally a chapel of ease and was built in 1850. It remained that way until 1993, when it became a parish church in its own right. Extensions to the original building were made in 1991 and 2001. These are quite clearly seen if you wander around the sides. It holds one service every month. There's no cemetery or churchyard as such with this one, but in the small garden in front of St John's there's a couple of memorials, including this tree to Joyce Tubbs. On the wall around the edge I found this plaque about some golden rose trees planted to commemorate the Golden Jubilee of the local Women's Institute. Leaving the church behind now, we're making our way towards the A6097. On the left we have the manor house, and that's not the only grand old building up here. So there are some impressive properties here in Gunthorpe, and we've seen a couple of them already, but this one is probably the best of the lot. At number 2 Main Street, it's the Hall, which looks like a castle. Check this out. Gunthorpe Hall is a medieval fortified hall with a Victorian extension. It is undoubtedly the most impressive building in the village. It's Grade 2 listed, and it's rumoured to have been moved to its present site shortly after Oliver Cromwell's time. It's said there was once a tunnel that ran under the River Trent from the hall to Shelford Manor. From 1914 until 1927, Frank Drakes and his wife owned and lived at Gunthorpe Hall. They would later emigrate to Canada. And now we've hit the A6097, which was built to bypass the villages in this part of Nottinghamshire. As mentioned earlier, Main Street used to be Gunthorpe's main thoroughfare. Along this road there's a major caravan company, Loudham's, a company which started its life back in 1966, the brainchild of George Crafts. Initially the company sold residential and static caravans, and their original site was just 3/4 of an acre big. It's expanded a bit since then. And opposite them you'll find this footpath which runs back to Main Street. You can take that way back into the village, but we're not going that way. We're carrying on down the A6097 to the bridge over the River Trent. That's next. Just before we hit Gunthorpe Bridge, there's a series of ponds on the right-hand side of the road. These are former gravel pits that are now fishing lakes. Here we are then at Gunthorpe Bridge, a vital crossing point over the River Trent. Until the 1870s, the only ways to cross the river here were via a ferry or by fording it. It was then that the Gunthorpe Bridge Company was formed to build a bridge, and that they did. Gunthorpe Bridge opened in 1875, and it was built mainly of iron. However, the bridge you see here today is not the original. It was replaced in 1927 owing to the ever-increasing amount of commercial traffic using it. The original bridge was deemed unfit as it could only handle 6 tons of weight. This, the new bridge, was built 400 metres upstream from the old one, and I'll show you exactly where the old one was in a few moments. The current bridge has 3 arches and it's made of reinforced concrete. And you can see the car park there where we started. So yeah, we've made it all the way around Gunthorpe. Although we're not quite finished yet, there's one more thing to talk about. The parish boundaries extend quite a long way down the River Trent. Now we're not going to walk all the way down the Trent to where they lead. We'll walk part of the way. There's a few more landmarks to catch down there, and then we'll come back down this road here to the Unicorn and back to the car. This bridleway runs all the way to Quaythorpe if you follow its entire length. We're not going that far, but we are passing Gunthorpe Marina. It's here that we find one of the old abutments of the former Gunthorpe Bridge. The old bridge required a toll to be paid to cross it. The modern bridge is free. I'm led to believe that the toll house was on the other side of the river, so that's something to have a look at when we hit Rushcliffe. For now, let's follow the Trent. Our last stop is Gunthorpe Lock, one of the largest locks on the Trent. This lock was a key point along the river during the times when goods were transported along it. The lock could hold up to 4 ketches at a time, a fancy word for a flat-bottomed barge. These days, there's very few, if any, commercial boats that travel through it, and Gunthorpe Lock is now another favourite spot for tourists. That's why there's a bistro here. It's the perfect place to end this quite amazing Nottinghamshire village. And this lock is here because on the other side of that island there's a weir, and you can't see it, and I was going to show you it, I was going to end at it, but there's no unauthorized access across the lock, so I won't be able to show you the weir, but it is there, and that's why this lock exists. And all I've got left to do now is walk back down the riverside to the car, and I do hope you have enjoyed the parish of Gunthorpe. I've never been here before, and I'll tell you what, when the sun gets out in the summertime and the pubs are all open and everyone's enjoying the hot weather, as I mentioned earlier, it'd be a nice place to just sit and enjoy life, basically, isn't it? You know, on the banks of the Trent with a nice cold pint of beer. I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot. This has been the parish of Gunthorpe, and I'm out.